Hello, I'm Cathy.
I'm Rachel.
I'm Ola, and welcome to Lunabird Book Club!
In today's vlog, we are reviewing The Snow Child by Eowyn Ivey. We had really intended on doing this, well I don't know, maybe we had. This book first appeared on our channel in our Winter Reads video, and I recommended it saying this is one of my favourite books. It's sad and beautiful and uses like folklore, at which point you were like,
I want to read that.
And she said, can I take it and read it? And I said, no! Because we'd just been talking about how big your TBR pile was and how many books you had to read. I was like, Rachel, I'm not enabling you. You really want to get these other books read. I'm not going to be part of that. Mm-hmm. And then I left the room, and then Ola, what did you try and do?
I tried to convince Rachel to take it.
You tried to convince Rachel to take it.
And I did try.
You were sneaking it into a bag when I came back in. And I took it out and I put it back on the shelf. I was like, Rachel, I'm not enabling this. You've got other books to read, you'll be fine.
But then Cathy and Rob and Orla went away for Christmas and they left me in charge of the house and the cats. So while they were gone, I took the book with me. And I read it and I loved it. It was fantastic.
So yeah, I can't be good. I'm really glad you read it actually.
Oh. High five, thank you.
High five. Took me 3 or 4 days, I think. Like once I started it, I was hooked. I was in. It was great. It was really sad, but also really hopeful, but also really fun at times as well.
So we were away for Christmas and you were away for New Year, so we're like messaging each other and like, Rachel's really enjoying this book. So I'm really glad we can review it now. Mm-hmm. The only issue is that I read this book quite a few years ago and thought it was spectacular, but I also know of how heartbreaking it is in places, so I've never reread it. I own it, I want to reread it, but I've not brought myself to do it, so the plot points are a bit fuzzy for me.
Well, let me give you a recap.
With a spoiler warning!
If you haven't read this book, go and read it now, cry, and then come back and watch our video. So this book it centres on Jack and Mabel, who are a couple in the 1920s in America. They are not able to have children. They had one stillborn baby, I want to say, about 10 years ago, and they have never got over that grief. So they move away from their nice comfortable lives in East America and they move to Alaska, to the frozen wastelands. Not the wastelands, but that's symbolic of what it is. Yeah, the wilderness, thank you, that's a much better word. They have been there for about a year at this point, and Mabel is really struggling mentally. The first chapter, Mabel attempts to take her own life by falling into a frozen river, but she doesn't succeed. She goes back home, and then in the novel, her and Jack struggle to communicate with each other about how they are coping with their grief. And they go out in the snow one day, the first snowfall of the year. They build a little snowman or a little snow child, and then the next day it has gone. It has fallen apart. There are footprints leading away from where the snow child was. The hat and the scarf, no, the hat and the gloves, no. The scarf and the gloves that Mabel and Jack put on it have disappeared. And then a girl appears wearing the gloves and the scarf, seemingly from nowhere. She's wild and free, and she kind of enters Jack and Mabel's life as this child for the season, and then at the end of the winter season she goes away. But Jack, during the first winter, the child trusts him enough to take him to a site where there is the corpse of a man who was frozen to death in the cold. She says that's her father. Jack helps her bury him, doesn't tell Mabel about it, and then the child is called Faina. She disappears in the spring and then comes back the next winter. The other people in the town who sort of know about Mabel and Jack's assertions that there is a child that comes are a bit like, she comes back each winter, and then she is seen by the Benson family, and then you jump forward about 6 years, and so she's now about 16, 17, and one of the young men from a neighbouring farm then falls in love, they get pregnant, they get married, and then after the baby comes, Faina gets sick. They take her out into the snow to cool her down, and then in the morning she is gone. There's nothing left in the snow apart from the clothes that she was wearing, and that's it. I missed a lot there.
No, that's a really good summary. That's sparked a lot of memories.
Okay.
If I remember right, there's an air of mystery. I don't think it's ever 100% clear.
What happens to her?
Yeah, is she?
Is she? Who is this man? Did she come out of the snow? Because who is this man? But then she disappeared into the snow, and that's what I really liked about it. That it was left open. There is no closure, really.
Wait, I have an idea.
Oh, what's your idea, Older?
What if she just disappeared into the snow and then years later there's someone rebuilt her and then she comes back to life again?
Did she turn back into snow, or did she take off all her clothes and just leave into the wilderness?
Yeah, so is she just like a very unconventional girl who is living in the wild, or is she made out of snow? Is she like a magical being? I don't know.
I don't know either. But I loved thinking about it.
Yeah.
Oh, let me look at some notes on my phone. This is what I love about magical realism, though, that like, because there is that question, like, how magic is it?
Yeah.
Is it just... Because there's a real baby that comes from it and grows up, little Jack. There's a real baby that comes from this. So how... What?
Yeah, and does she appear to meet the needs of Jack and Mabel, and maybe once there's an actual real life grandchild there who they can love and raise, does she go because she's not needed anymore because she's...
Or is it? So within the story there is reference to a Russian tale called Snegurochka.
Okay.
Which means Little Maiden of the Snow or something. And this is a book that Mabel has read in the story, which tells the story of a couple who make a child out of the snow, and the child comes to life, and then the child goes away when it feels like they don't love her enough. Like they the child gets lost, and then a fox brings her back home and says, because I brought your child home, you should give me a fat hen. And the couple say, okay, but then they trick the fox and set a dog on it instead. And then because the child feels like they don't love her, she goes. So I'm thinking, did she leave? Has she left because her job is done and Mabel and Jack don't need her anymore? Or is it that now that this child is here, there is more love for the child than for Faina? There's a lot of hunting that goes on. Like Garrett is the young man who marries Faina. And he is a tracker, is that what they're called?
Yeah.
A trapper, not a tracker. A trapper. So he hunts and kills animals. But Faina also hunts and kills animals. And then there's a bit where Garrett sees Faina kill a swan. It's got his foot caught in a trap, and he thinks that Faina might let it go. But then she kills it, and then she puts the feathers on her wedding dress, and I'm like, is she the swan? And she's caught in a trap, and she has to die. And then there's a bit where Garrett's been hunting this Wolverine all the time. Let me see what I wrote on my phone. I'm just like, is this symbolic of Faina? The first thing that happens is that Garrett kills Faina's fox, and then because Garrett then enters into a relationship with Faina and she has Garrett's child, is Garrett the reason that Faina dies?
Yeah.
You know? Then there's the bit about the fox. And then, no, the bit about the swan. There's a Wolverine in the book that keeps on like killing animals or like stealing animals from traps.
Yeah.
And then Garrett is in the woods one day and Faina has killed the Wolverine and she tries to give it to him. But then is Faina also the Wolverine, because she is also trapping animals and taking them out of Garrett's territory, and then Garrett marries Faina and kills the Wolverine, which is Faina, and I'm like, Rachel, you're really reaching, but I just really liked all the possible symbolism there. And I also really liked how when Faina is speaking, or when a character is speaking to Faina, there aren't any speech marks. But when characters are speaking to each other, there are speech marks. And I mentioned this to I took this on holiday with me over my New Year's holiday, and someone said that Sally Rooney's books, she never uses speech marks at all. And I have listened to the audiobook of Normal People, so I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And they were talking about how they didn't like it. And I think if it was the whole novel, I wouldn't like it. But because it's representing the etherealness of Faina,
Yeah.
I thought it was really, really clever. And I thought at one point that Faina was going to speak with speech marks, and that would like represent her free spirit dying, which is like the way that
she's been like socialized.
Yeah, because Mabel gets sent the storybook by her sister, and her sister writes a letter and is like, oh, there's different ways that this story has ended in the retellings of the myth, but the child always goes away or dies or something like that. But we could who's to say that the story can't be rewritten with a happy ending or something like that? Like, we choose our own ending. And I thought that would be a way that the child did die, but then also Faina would stay because she's like become cemented in the real world. But that didn't happen. She just died. It's really sad.
But does she die?
Oh, great question. Great question.
Does she die?
Does she die, or does she just go back into the wilderness?
Yeah.
Because she feels so stifled by the life that she's fallen into.
Maybe. I think like there's that pull, isn't there, in the book between like the wilderness and society, but nobody is quite completely in one camp or the other. Like even Mabel and Jack have come to the wilderness.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think when I first read it, I kind of half hoped that she'd gone back to being fully wild, and that's really where she needed to be. But that's still really sad because Mabel and Jack love her, and there's a baby who will miss her too.
I thought it was a really nice novel about grief and how we communicate with each other, because at the beginning, Mabel and Jack really struggle they misunderstand what the other is needing, because they can't bring themselves to talk about the grief that they're going through. And then with Faina there, it gives them a chance to actually like build their relationship back up in a different way.
I think, if I remember rightly, that was another thing I liked about this novel, is that Mabel and Jack, they are struggling, but neither of them's a horrible person. Like, you end up rooting for both of them as they go through these struggles, and I think you've got a lot of characters to invest in the story.
And I think the characters are so engaging. Like, you care about them straight away, and like you said, they're both struggling, and they both unintentionally hurt each other, but they stick together and they work through that, and I just think it's really nice. And I really liked the fact that we could see Mabel getting more comfortable in the wilderness, partly due to Faina, partly due to the Bensons. Oh my gosh, the Bensons were so cool. Esther Benson, what a gal. And like partly due to her feeling more comfortable in sharing with Jack, both in the responsibility of the farm and just actually talking to him about, because there's this bit in it where they do talk about the child that they originally lost. Yeah. And I just thought it was a really nice book.
Yeah. Did it make you want to go to Alaska?
Well, see, this is 1920s Alaska.
Yeah.
So I'd go here. I don't know anything about 2020s Alaska.
No,
so
me neither. But I remember reading it and feeling like, knowing I would not survive well here. I am not cut out for that kind of life, but I wish I was. But I don't know how she made Alaska, like this setting, sound so difficult and wild and quite scary to live in and hard work, but also just so stunningly beautiful.
Yeah, and really romantic.
Yeah.
It kind of gave me, this is just my bias, it kind of gave me like Anne of Green Gables vibes.
Yes!
Just like that homestead vibe.
Yeah.
It was just, I just love it.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
I have one more thing to say about the Russian Snegurochka novel being included, like, because so at the start of each, there's 3 parts in this, and at the start of them it's got a little quote from different interpretations of this myth, folklore tale of the Snow Maiden. And I think the fact that this book was in the book as well, like Mabel gets a physical copy of it and she looks back at the story, this is a story that she is familiar with, I think it lends this kind of like oppressing quality to the novel. Like, there is already foreshadowing.
Yeah.
There's this foreshadowing of things that are yet to come, but with that air of, will it? Because of the letter that the sister sends with it. Like,
Yeah.
it's there, and it's an ominous presence within Mabel's own mind. So then within your mind, because we're in Mabel's point of view most, I just thought it was a really good narrative technique to implement. Do you have anything else to say?
Well, I was just also saying what you were just saying then about how you have this foreshadowing fact like this child might not stay, but just how much that already speaks to like the great fear and love of parenting.
Mm-hmm.
Like the moment you start to have a child, you're also setting yourself up for the time when they move away, or you know, it's all very uncertain having children. So you've got a great love, but there is like that great fear and uncertainty too. And I think this novel does a great job of exploring that using folklore, which I love. You know, you said about magical realism.
Yeah.
That's what I love about it too. I love how it connects us to like stories people have always told, and connects us to fears that we might still have, anxieties, and the good stuff too, the loves and the triumphs. I love how all of that's kind of connected in the stories we tell, and then how we retell them. And I love this kind of treatment of folklore where it takes lots of inspiration but then makes something new and of its own as well. So yeah, I think this is like my favourite kind of fantasy book.
Yeah. I really liked it, and I loved that the ending wasn't, the Eowyn Ivey didn't feel the need to say this is what happened.
Yeah.
She leaves it open to your own interpretation or your own deliberations. Like, there's no explanation for what happened to Faina. She's just gone.
Yeah.
And I loved it.
Yeah, me too. Yay!
It was great. I could read this again right now. I won't because I have other books to read, but I could read this again right now. Yeah, this is just a really nice folklore retelling set in rural Alaska in the 1920s that has things to say about grief and family and healing and the way that we communicate with each other and the world around us.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's really amazing. You should read it.
You should read it. You should reread it. You should reread it.
I want to reread it.
Yeah.
So that was our review of The Snow Child. Thank you so much for watching. We release new videos every Friday. Please like and subscribe to keep up with us. We'd love to see you again next week. See you later.
Bye. Hello. Hello. It's actually Jane.
It's not like a class.
It's in the middle. It's in the middle.
No, that's really
Ah.
Do you want me to click the camera before? Yeah.
Copy, please.
Hello.
Hello. Let's just try it. Hello. Hello. Let's just go on. Use that one. Okay.
Hello. Just have it on. No. She's not going to
If it's you, that's the reason. It's hello. Hello, I'm Rachel.
No.
I'm-
Well, I thought we were saying say alphabetically.
Oh, I can't.
Yeah.
Oh, we never lost video. Hello, I'm Cathy.
Welcome to the Club!
That's fine. Try and enjoy it. Yeah.
The next time it snows, one of you gonna try and build a girl out of snow?
I am now.